Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind, and I'm here for a new episode. Few things of note here. First of all, I'm sorry that the draft content hasn't been being pumped out on the regular. We are going to get back to it soon. I have 2 videos that I'm editing still, and another one that I still have to edit. So that's 3 videos. So, people, it is coming. Noah, it is coming. James, it is coming. Don't worry. I want to first of all welcome my guest today, Nelley J, who has hosted, and I don't know if you want to say host or an anchor of Raptors Live TV currently. But before I get into that, you also have been part of the Good Rookies podcast for about 3 years. So, first of all, welcome. And
Thank
then the second thing
you.
is, could you just tell me a little bit about Good Rookies?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me. Love that you're creating this content for the people. We need more creators like you. So thank you for having me here. Good Rookies was pretty much a baby of other podcasts. So like, when you're podcasting, you do different shows here and there. Good Rookies was birthed, I would say, prior to the pandemic, but we had to change our name to Good Rookies because I'm not gonna say who, but a group in California took our other name that we had. So we came up with Good Rookies. And it's just been a great, like, I think it was meant to be, right? At first we were like, how dare they? But then we're like, you know what? This is probably a sign that this wasn't meant to be. So we got Good Rookies. Fahim is the co-host with me. And we've been working on this for, yeah, you're right. It has been 3 years. Oh my gosh. We're at episode 139 this week. And we try to cover different things like main topics, topics around culture, topics around society, because I think sports does reflect society a lot of times. Topics celebrating individuals that are doing things for the culture. So we get to highlight our guests because all of our guests are doing incredible things. They're coaches, they run businesses, they're entrepreneurs, they're doing the things and they're educating the people. So we try to highlight them and show support and help them, of course, increase, the notoriety. And of course, we also have a segment called That's Absurd, which I love, where we talk about just like anything that's absurd, which happens in sports or society all the time. So we talk about just like, what, this happened? So we get to call things out and just kind of talk about, is this a good thing or a bad thing? So yeah, it's been great with Good Rookies. Big up to Fahim, who I'm also a co-host with for Raptors Live TV as well. So yeah, as you know, we're doing some big things with that as well. So yeah, check us out anytime. We're always there. We're on
Absolutely.
YouTube, Spotify, everywhere, Apple, wherever you
When
can find a
you
podcast.
guys get all of your links, for now, I will definitely put all the stuff that you do have in the link and the description down below,
Yes.
so people
I'll
can
give you a
check that
link
out.
tree so you have it.
When you guys get things like the Twitch, because I did look, I couldn't find your Twitch. When you do
No,
get it,
it's not yet. Yes,
when
we
you do
we
get
we
it,
are
I
still working
will.
on it.
Yeah, so I will talk about it on one of the future shows because I really do like what you guys have to offer. It's a great community, and it's just really great. And not only are you building a community, you're also, some of you, your co-host is literally building a community with
Yep.
all the children, right? So
Yep.
that is really amazing. Just to kind of move things forward, one of your first episodes, you actually talked about this topic, and with the CBA actually occurring, and it's had certain things. We're gonna skip the gambling stuff because I'm not really a big gambler, and I really don't like that kind of stuff. But it talked about, you guys talked about the WNBA, and I saw that players are able to invest in the WNBA and NBA. And with that being said, I also don't know if you got the news today. Apparently, OG is investing in one of the London Lion whatever. So in terms of that WNBA team, I will ask you a question in 1 second, but first, let's talk about the NCAA and the difference in terms of viewership this year,
Mm.
because I didn't really watch as much as I've been into draft content. I haven't really watched the NCAA championship game for the men live, but I watched the women live. And according to, sources, there was an average, now this doesn't include streaming, but there was 9.9 million viewers versus 1.3 million for the men. So men have to step it up. I think that the WNBA has to change their eligibility to get these women in, so that they
Mm-hmm.
don't have to wait a couple months or whatever. But with that being said, my question to you is, what do you think about that? Like, what do you think about the opportunity that perhaps we might get a franchise, and do you think that it's something that could happen? And what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. First of all, the WNBA is going to be having their first game in Canada ever on May 13th. I shall be there. Okay. But I think it's a great opportunity. I've been advocating for women's sports for the last two, three, since my podcast started. And before that, I've been advocating for women's sports because I saw this coming, right? I saw it coming. I saw, like, when you see like the movement, this, the women's game is so fundamentally sound, and you're seeing society accepting more women in sports media, athletes, and the NIL, I think, has been a blessing for some of these ladies in college because, to be honest, some of them are making more money through NIL in college than they would in WNBA. So that's a blessing because that tells me that when they go to WNBA, right, that same sponsorship can take them through to WNBA with the team. And with sponsorship, that will now promote the league altogether. So I'm excited for the WNBA. I'm excited for people accepting women playing basketball, but also enjoying it, right? At the end of the day, sports is entertainment. It's a form of entertainment. And I think a lot of times in the back in the day, people just were entertained with women playing basketball. And I never understood that. But now we're seeing more and more men, and even like men, kids, everyone embracing these because they're athletes first. Yes, they're women, but they're also athletes first. They work hard on their craft like any other person. So I'm just so happy that they're getting the recognition that they do because in the WNBA, I think that expansion, some folks think is not a good idea because the WNBA is not profiting right now, right? They're not. But I think with the NCAA, like back in the day when Larry and Magic, like sometimes you need those college stars to come into the league, and that's going to create more notoriety for the league altogether. So I think they're moving in the right direction. I think they're going to get there. Will they ever be as profitable as the NBA? That doesn't really matter. I just think that if every year they're getting more viewership, they're getting more sponsorship, they're getting bigger. We saw the Seattle, their team is now worth 100 million. So we're seeing that happening, and it's a women's team. We're seeing even in soccer too. So I'm loving it. I think WNBA will be great in Canada. I think Toronto fans are so loyal here. Like we're loyal. So if we get a team, we're going to those games. We're going to bring family camps, and I think it's great for the culture to have a WNBA team in Toronto. So I'm a big fan of that. If we get it, if it ever happens for us.
Absolutely. I know that they've talked about it. We do have the ability to support a team like that from whether it be infrastructure or population size. I don't think that that's a problem. One of the things that I think is lacking in that league is their commissioner needs vision. I think that I was actually talking to Beyond about this. He and I were just talking about this from a few different perspectives, and we were looking at how the soccer game, as you mentioned, has grown. You see the expansion of all those teams. They're forward thinking. So one of the things that we talked about was perhaps there's a need for celebrity endorsement. Now, I'm not expecting Beyonce to be here. I brought up Beyonce to him, but we were talking about Houston, right?
Hey, if they had a team in Houston, you don't
Exactly.
know, right? Remember Houston Comets? That was one of the best teams. They won how many championships? Like, if they got a team, we don't know if Beyonce would invest in that. I think she could have. She
I
could,
mean, she
maybe.
she talked about, or at least there was rumors of her and I think Obama building up an ownership group at one point. This is a while ago, so I mean,
Mm.
you never know. Yeah, I think it would be good. I don't know who would be the right celebrity for a Toronto team, but I do think as a whole that league does need better vision in terms of looping in stars to really promote that game. Because I do think that it can be. I mean, you look at how the franchises of the MLS women's side have grown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be forward thinking. And also, if you're an owner and you can afford, I was talking to Beyond about this too. The cost of this, I mean, it sounds ridiculous for me to say, but the cost of an MLS team for women's soccer seems to be about $50 million in terms of
Mm-hmm.
valuation. The cost of the WNBA is closer to half of that. Um,
Yeah.
at
But we're
that
seeing,
point,
I
that's
think there's
chump
two or
change for some of
three
these guys.
teams that are getting up there, but you're correct. Like the average team isn't worth that much.
Yes.
Um,
Well, and I'm also
but
talking about
mhm.
the franchise fees.
Yes, the franchise. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So to me, I'm like, for some of these guys, this is pocket change, right? It's versus like what was it? I forget what team recently just sold 20. It was the Bucks actually,
Hmm.
25% for 3.8 billion.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
anyways, I find it very really interesting. I do like the fact that the we are promoting more athlete ownership or more player empowerment through that means. Um, and really quickly, you touched on something really briefly, and I'll just quickly make an aside about it. It is really unfortunate that we have to have some of these athletes go overseas, go to Russia, go to other places so that they can make a living. I remember this one time, and I can't remember who it was. They were driving like this Toyota Corolla, blah blah blah, and they were like, "Yeah, I got to go teach in the summer or something." And I'm like, "What is going on?" Like this person is literally like a part-time like tutor teacher so that they can afford
Hmm.
to like at least pay them a living wage at bare minimum.
Exactly.
But anyways, um, beyond that, I think I want to play a game. But before I play the game, I'm going to talk
Ooh.
about something really important, which relates to the game: the
Okay.
playoffs. So every single year, I've noticed that the NBA playoffs, and particularly the finals, seems to kind of shift the way that teams will draft or view things. Last year, I think if you look, it's usually the final four teams. You'll notice a pattern. So last year, you noticed that there wasn't a lot of centers. What did we see? We saw a lot of wings go early on in the draft. This is part of the reason why, uh, you know, Walker Kessler and Koloko fell relative to other players. So my question is, I know it's early in the playoffs, but do you see there to be a chance of any new shifts this year?
So that's a good question. And I want to shout out to the folks in 94 Feet, the Run Sports, the Draft Review, because these are the guys that I speak with. I go to when it comes to the draft and players. And so it's funny. I was actually looking at, I think I mentioned in Raptors Live TV, I've been looking into the draft the last couple of weeks, just looking into players, looking into like, and really getting guys because we watch these guys on TV or like, here, but the people that actually go to these games have seen these guys live. And I think when you see a player live, you have a better analysis around just the energy, just like how they approach the game versus on TV. Like TV, you can tell things, but I think seeing a player live, you see a lot more than I would see. So I've asked folks about this, looking at the Thompson twins and Scoot, all these guys that are coming out. I do think this year we're going to see not as much projects. What I mean by that is like, I think we're going to get, of course, the taller people, the taller folks, because basketball is a tall man sport. I've been told all the time. So if you're taller, you have a better chance. But I also think now we're looking to get more, we're going back to how big men should play, right? Um, and I'm not trying to knock Cat or other guys who are big but have a guard style to their game. I just think that now we're
Oh, why
seeing
you got to do them like that?
I'm just saying I love me some Cat,
I'm
but
just kidding.
rebound more. Anyway, but I just think now we're seeing, wow, like we got to rebound. We need offensive rebounds. We need to retain the most possessions. We're seeing how Sabonis is dominating the paint in that Sacramento versus the Warrior. Like we're seeing that rebounding matters. Like having paint position matters, blocks matter. Like all these things that we forgot that we really care about is going to come into fruition. I do think though, to your point, we're going to see guys that can play multiple positions. For some reason, we're in this game of can you play 4 and 5? Can you play 3, 4, 5? Can you play? It's like, and can you defend multiple positions as well? So I do think we're going to see that wing, but I also think we're going to see a lot more scorers. Like, can you make a bucket? Because you can tell in this league now, right? If like teams that can't score don't go far, a la Toronto Raptors. If you only have one scorer or two and vice versa. You're not going to go far in this NBA game because there's teams like Sacramento that can score quickly. There's teams like I would say like even Boston, like they just have scorers, right? You look at you're like, what the hell? They got even the Knicks got scores now with Brunson and those guys. So you need guys that can make a bucket that don't require a pass to score. They can make their own shot. So I think this year we're going to have a mixture. I don't think it'll be as wing heavy, but I do think we're going to have guys that can play multiple positions, that can guard multiple positions, and guys that can actually score. That's going to be a big value, and guys that actually have an NBA skill. So if I'm a really good rebounder, you will go versus a guy that can do a little bit of everything. Like what are you really good at, right? And I think if I'm a guy trying to get drafted, I got to make sure that I'm really good at one thing and promote that. Because I think teams now, we've drafted enough to say, okay, we pick guys that can do a lot of things, but what are you really good at? Like, what are you really, really good at? You can come on my team and I know you will kill it. Like Walker Kessler, we knew that he can block. That's his NBA skill, right? Koloko, he can block. But what else can they do? And I just think that coaches hopefully will draft guys that they're going to play. I don't like drafting people that I'm going to put in the G League. I hate that. And I get that it's a part of development, but I think we're going to see guys like this past draft, to your point, the top 10 picks from last year, I think out of the top 10, I think two or three weren't getting minutes. The rest were getting like actual game minutes, 15 or more minutes off the bench. But I think three of them were not even, I think they were in the G League or barely got minutes. So I think those top 10, 15 lottery picks are guys that you want to be able to play. Don't be drafting guys that you have to like, develop only. Like if they have no NBA skill, you have to add on top of that. So we're gonna see though. We're gonna see. I think we'll still see lots of wings, but I think we're gonna see scores, man. Guys that can make a bucket. That's gonna be a big, big push. So the Victors, the
Absolutely.
Scoots, the Thompson twins, they can make a bucket. That's why they're gonna go early, right? Grady, those guys, yeah.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I've noticed having, started to really get into the draft myself is a couple things. Number one, I think that to your point, and this is how I kind of categorize this. I think IQ or feel for the game is going to be much more valued. I think the other thing too is fundamentals. You touched on some of them. Sometimes it's as simple as boxing out. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say, but as simple as boxing out, those are skills. Those are translatable skills. I'll give you a name of a really good player who reminded me of a tall version of Lowry. Jalen Williams, the Jay.
Yes, the Jay.
Yeah,
Yes, a
yeah,
lot of people like
exactly.
him. A lot of people are liking Jalen Williams.
I liked him as well. I did like Koloko a little bit better because I thought, and even throughout this, first of all, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, but
Yep.
also Koloko has shown passing flashes and stuff like that. I think it's just going to take a little bit more time. So people watch out next year. You'll see a different Koloko. Also needs to, not skip leg day. But I think IQ is something that is so valued because if you can come in, I think it's truly something that is hard to kind of put into words. But I'll give you a story. My friend told me, so this is a friend's story. So I'm not going to incriminate anyone or anything like this. He said that there was this guy that was literally able to take a quarter off the top of the basket. Okay. Most athletic dude he's ever seen. Problem is, one time he was cussing out his coach. He says, "Why did you take me out of the game?" He said, "Oh, because you have 6 fouls." He said, What do you mean?"
Wow,
This guy was in
he
university.
was unaware.
He had so he had to sit him down as he's cussing the coach out and say, "No, this is the rules of the game." I think a lot of teams are going to stray away from major projects, and so I agree with that. To a point. I mean, there are some guys, we don't have to go through all of them today. It's not that podcast, but a guy like Gigi Jackson, where he's coming in, he's 18 years old, you can understand. But if a guy's 20 years old and you're still trying to teach
21,
him,
22.
yeah, or 22, and it's you may not have the same amount of runway. Okay,
Or even a
so
guy that's very athletic, like very, because when someone's really athletic, like they already have the raw, like we're getting guys that aren't athletic, and then it's a project. It's like no, let's get the best athletic type guy because you can create that. Like I'm not saying the Westbrooks, like James Harden, for example. Like these guys weren't the best, but they were just so athletic. You saw something. You know what I mean? Like you got to
Well,
see something.
yeah. So to your point, the athleticism gives you so basketball, especially at that level, is a game that has such slim margins. We're talking about within seconds, and so the athleticism gives you that extra little bit of margin for error, and that will keep you on the floor and also allow you to have those things. Now, if you can combine that with some understanding, it even gives you some extra time. As we just talked about, 3 years goes by so fast. It gives you some extra time to at least gain those skills, an opportunity to gain those skills. So, but with that being said, I have a question, and it's related to, well, it's not related to the playoffs, it's related to the Raptors, but it is going to be based off of, it's colored from the playoff experience yesterday. Did you watch the game yesterday, the Sacramento versus?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you'll love this.
Okay.
Step through or stomp out.
That man stomped him. Like, I've been debating with Warriors fans all day today, okay? And I get it. Draymond, he stomped on him. Like he stomped. Like that was the boom. Like
I mean,
boom.
S on from the Raptors world. He stole my line. I know he did because I know when I sent it and he liked it and then he used it for himself. But I did say he choked. He used his chest as a trampoline.
He did. And like what made it worse was that he jumped, like he stomped on him, then
Oh
put
yeah,
his weight and then
made
jumped
sure
on
to.
top. Like, oh my gosh. Like, yo, like Sabonis in pain. That's not a fake, guys. Like I've had like ribs injury before. That hurts. Like you're just like it's
Yeah,
agonizing.
it
Some
it
people
was
can't even walk if they have rib injuries.
from
Like
like a 200 and something pound person. So
and Draymond and muscular, like and he jumped like a it was crazy. That was crazy.
But my, it's gonna be kind of a little bit of a game, which is step through. So you step through it, or are you stomping it out? We're not gonna put people in this, like stomping out a
Okay.
fire.
Okay. Cool.
A
Cool.
little bit nicer.
Stopping on a fire. That's nice. That's nice.
So I'm gonna ask you about 3 different things, and you're gonna give me step through or stomp out.
Okay.
Sorry, Draymond. So first of all, keeping Nurse.
Respectfully stomp out.
Okay, we're stomping that fire out.
Respectfully. And what I actually like Nurse a lot. Like he's one of my favorite coaches. Just not for just Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes mean more to me than Nick Nurse. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this on Raptors Live TV actually, and in a couple other places, but I compare coaches to CEOs, and some CEOs are good at getting you from startup phase all the way to Series A funding, and others are able to go from Series A to IPO. Not all coaches are good from startup all the way. And I use the example of Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs got fired by his own company, had to learn, and had to come back. So keep that in mind, people. Sometimes, you can be a good coach, but not for that situation. Also, I think that within that, there are times when a more cerebral coach may not be viewed as the same as a I don't want to say non-cerebral coach, but there's just some coaches where they really are able to touch the lives of the people that they're around.
Yeah.
You hear guys talk about Greg Popovich. He's a hard blank, right? But at the same time, they always say he's bigger than basketball. He talks to us about life. And I want a coach that does that. So we will get into that talk in a second. But the next 2 questions, step through or stomp out. Fred VanVleet. We're not stomping out Fred, by the way, people.
Yeah, we're not stopping on
No
Fred.
violence. We do not.
No. What we're gonna do, we're gonna put Fred in a nice little package with some Gucci, with some nice clothes, with some Coach bags for the family, some nice, blankets, cuddling the kids because they're beautiful children, and then we're gonna take them, over to Pearson Airport and stomp them gracefully outside of Toronto. No, I'm joking. I'll say step out because I'm not gonna stomp out Fred. I just think I think the coach has enabled his bad habits. And it's funny because I've spoken to guys who play basketball and some like a lot of people love Fred. Like I love his story. I love what Fred has done with his career. Like it's very motivating. But I feel like Fred forgot who he was. I think Fred forgot that he's not a superstar. I think Fred forgot that on a championship team, he's a six man. Like he forgot that. And it's okay, right? It's okay. But I just would like Fred to either buy into the new system. If a coach comes in and he can buy into what the coach is saying, then I'm cool keeping Fred, because I think that new coach understands Scotty's the guy and he's going to bring in a fresh ideas, fresh voices, and he's not going to be what's the word, bias, right? Because he's not coming in with like favorites, right? And I think, what Fred has done for this franchise is hard for a coach or for Nick to say, no, Fred, you know what I mean? So maybe someone comes in a bit more, not aggressive, but a bit more like hard nosed, like, hey guys, I believe in y'all, but it's the game plan, and he respects that. I will step him out. I won't stomp him out. I'll step out Fred. I'll step out Fred.
Okay, so yeah, from that perspective, I am more of letting him go. I have certain reasons for it, but the main thing is that I'll actually use what David Thorpe even said about this, is that the best thing for Fred is actually for him to go back to the role that he was in when he won the championship, which is off the bench. But
David
I don't
Thorpe,
think he's going to do that.
David Thorpe, we're on the same page, brother. Okay.
Do you have his number?
No, I don't. But I'm just like,
Yeah,
I think people forget that. Like people forget he is a six man on a championship team, but we've given him a first or secondary role because we had no choice. Like we don't got the talent.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I think I'm more in favor of the stomping out, mainly because I just I should have picked a different segment. That's okay though. It still works. Mainly because for me, I just think that I think it's hard to, now that you've opened Pandora's box, I kind of see it like Trae Young, right? I think Trae Young, in many ways, represents a much more talented version of Trae. Fred. All respect to Fred, but
yeah, but come on, there's no comparison. Yeah, you're right.
So for that reason, the guy's gone through multiple coaches. Now, Fred hasn't had that opportunity, but I just see if you have a new coach and you end up in the same place, and then you end up trading him, then at that point you wasted the time to just do that in the first place. So that's my main thing. And also, again, I think that there's a certain level of, it may not be seen as a demotion, but like if you say, hey, you have to take a lesser role or whatever, and he was complaining about his role a lot this year, or at least if you don't want to say complaint, it was brought up by him in multiple media, it might be tough to do that, but we will see. Finally, OG, step through or stomp out?
Step through. Only because the man steps out of bounds half the time. Like, I just need OG to like pick up his feet. I need OG to do some yoga. I need OG to do some balancing. Like, yoga has the balancing exercises, like just learning center of gravity. I just feel like OG is just always flopping. Like he's like a poor man's Anthony Davis. Like he's just someone that when he falls, the entire city of Toronto is like, is this it? You know what I mean? Like I just need OG to just get balanced. Like I think but again, OG has an NBA skill that is so unique and only he can do it. Like he's the only guy that does what he does at the best that he can do. That's why I like OG a lot. But if OG wants to, OG wants more responsibility on the offensive end, and I'm okay with that, but you got to work on that skill. But I'm going to give you the ball because you asked for it. You know what I'm saying? That like improve your handling skills, get some dribbling down, learn how to move your body around the paint, because we've seen OG collapse with his own players in the paint or fall on the floor. Like he's just clumsy in there, and maybe he's just it's not natural for him to make a move when he's in that in that box. So for me, I just need OG to work on a few things offensively if he wants that opportunity. Like we've seen OG go off, and for the Knicks, like there's games where OG goes like, wow, OG can go crazy like that, but then it happens like 4 or 5 times and it stops. Is that a Fred thing? I don't know, but for me, step through. I want to keep him. I think he's a great guy. He's another guy that I think if he wants more opportunity and more responsibility, he got to work on it in the offseason. Because I'm sick of OG stepping out of bounds at the baseline, trying to drive to the rim. I'm sick of that. Okay, sick of it.
I agree. I lean towards trying to keep him, but the reason why I'm in the middle here, and maybe you tap out. That was my foot if you heard it. Is for me, number one, his comments when he was asked on media day or on the last press conference, he made it sound like, oh yeah, we'll talk about an extension. And to me, that's very, I understand that half the time he's almost like a darn mute, okay, in these pressers. But at some point, you know, you want a more definitive statement about like, yes, I would love to be back or whatever. If it's
Well,
just like,
keep in mind that's what Giannis did. Giannis did that after the bubble year. He also had the similar type. When they asked him, he said he wants to be on a team that's going to win. And Giannis was very vague. That's why a lot of people thought he might be leaving. But I think that's the agent thing. That's like, hey, don't make it seem like you're going to stay, because that's for negotiation. If you think I'm going to leave, guess what? You go offer me more money, right? So I think
yeah.
that's more of a money thing versus how he really feels. But yeah, I hear you though.
So I mean, you could be right. But Nick Nurse's book, dating back to the championship year, had a quote about OG wanting more touches. We've heard OG, you know, wants a bigger role and might not be happy. So again, my thing is, this is why I'm in the middle. It would really depend on how, since Masai, I mean, maybe by the time this gets out, who knows? Maybe Masai did a pre-recorded Zoom call or something. Like, maybe we'll see. But I think that they are going to ask the players, and in that one-on-one meeting, I think he has to be much more clear. Agreed. If he wants out, cut him loose. I don't want to have to sell this situation on people.
I mean, we have 2 more years with them. We can get a lot back for OG for sure.
You know. Oh, actually, so this upcoming year is his last. In terms of, because he can opt out.
He opted out. Okay.
He can opt out, which.
Oh, he can opt out. Yeah, because I saw
smart,
his contract.
He should.
His contract is expiring in 2025. So he has 1 year. OG's 2024?
Are you sure? So no. He's 25 right now, but I'm saying his contract is up. Basically, after next season, he has a player option.
Kind of like what Gary Trent has. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he would be silly to accept that player option because he's
not. No, he needs to opt out. Like he honestly, I think he deserves to be paid because he does. Absolutely. He does things that we just like. When OG's out, we struggle, right? But what we forget though, remember last year we made a big push to the playoffs. People forget this. That push did not include Fred VanVleet, and it didn't include OG. That push was with Scotty Barnes, Malachi, Pascal. We had a big push. And we made it to the postseason as a 5th seed without Fred and OG really helping. It was Gary Trent, Pascal, and Scotty.
Yep.
With Malachi, Armani Brooks. That was the team that we had. And that team was beating Cleveland. They beat Denver. So when people think, oh, we need Fred. No, we don't. I've seen us without Fred and beat good teams because the ball's moving around better because we know who's going to do what. So I think people forget that push last year, right? That the fact that we were I think a 9th seed, it came a 5th seed in a span of a month.
We had
when Freddie and OG was out.
8th best lottery odds, and we ended up being I think we were the 3rd best team. We were in the top 3 for teams. It was us and Boston that both basically completely turned our seasons around from January onwards.
Exactly. So that's why I feel like we forget that moment. And we were playing all the top teams. And we played Brooklyn, but I think Kyrie was playing. No, Kyrie wasn't playing because it was in Brooklyn, but we played a lot of good teams. So that's why I think that I get it. This happened before with Demar. I love Demar, but I wanted Demar to go because I felt like now Demar and Kala were enabling each other. They were bad for each other. And you could see it. They were enabling each other's bad habits. So I said they need to be separated. They're like, no, we got to keep Demar. I said, why? To be a top team in the East and lose in the playoffs? You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes as Raptor fans, we get attached to players and I get it, but it's not about who we like. It's about what's best for the organization. I respect your take on OG. I get that.
Demar thing, right? The second that Demar was traded, my first thought was, did we keep Lowry?
No, the thing, they're better apart. They're just better apart. They're better apart.
No, but I was like, I hope it was Lowry, not.
Oh, really? But you know what? What's crazy is that they probably offered Kyle, and I think they said no, give us Demar. That's what the funny thing is.
It's possible. I think also because of Demar coming up for an extension, I don't think that they wanted to pay Demar at the time. So I think that also factored into it. But yeah, sorry. just to move on from the stomping out of fires and stepping through in the lane, uh, I've asked this. Actually, have I asked this to you? I don't know. Okay. Have the Raptors. So I was at the Raptors Republic party,
Okay,
and I
nice.
went with Coach Roach. And it was actually the first time we had, well, no, I think I met him before then in person. So here's the thing. I asked this specific question at that party, and I'm going to ask you the same question. In terms of the Raptors, have we built the team so far around Siakam?
Hell no. Hell to the no, 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 to the no, 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 hell to the no. No, we have not. We have not built anything around Pascal. It
No.
kind of seemed like after Tampa Bay Raptors, we were just trying to feel things out. The 6'9" vision was a whole band-aid over the garbage that we were trying to like kind of cover up. 6'9" was a whole band-aid. It was 6'9" vision was cute. It was a good marketing ploy, but it didn't really fix the issue. We've never built a team around Siakam. The team was built that we had was around Demar and Kyle. Then they both left. We were hoping to keep Kawhi. He left. That year after the bubble year, we looked kind of cute. And then we had no game plan. Like since Tampa Bay Raptors, I have no clue who the center of this offense has been. And the fact is that you can't build a team around a core. Like I understand, Masai said it last year. I'm like, guys, no one does that. You can't build a team around 5 guys. You got to pick one person to focus on and then build the folks around him that's going to complement that and make everyone better. It hasn't happened yet.
I
So,
I
but the
agree.
question is, should we do that though? What do you think? Should we build a team around Pascal?
I personally think so because number one, if you want to optimize Scotty, they have the same skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So why not start it now? And then if it doesn't work in a year or two, or if the right guy comes around, then you at least have Siakam. I think the
Mm-hmm.
other thing too is that people like to. And by the way, if you're another fan base and you haven't won in X years, I really don't really want to hear about what you think that we need to do. I've heard
New
that.
York Knicks.
Yeah, well,
They did.
I mean, I was just talking to a Knicks fan not that long ago. I was
Your Knicks
telling me
fans are
that
spicy these days, huh? They're all
they,
spicy, bye.
they are, they were saying media narratives don't matter, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But with that being said, I do think yeah, like there's no reason why we shouldn't at least try to build around Siakam. At least try it, and that doesn't mean that you have to go away from positionless basketball. I say positionless. I don't go with Division 6-9. But I put it this way. Okay, if we got KD last summer, is that not still positionless basketball?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is. It's
Yep.
just one guy can shoot.
Yep. Yep. And to your point, I think that works, but every team, I don't care. Positions basketball is nice, but every team needs a guy that can run the offense. Like that
Yeah.
is not positionless. We need someone that runs the offense, whether that's a big man or a guard. But we need someone that runs this offense that has the IQ and has the like selfless ability to understand matchups, understand like what's best for the team, and
Yeah.
has an overall team mindset. That's why I love a Chris Paul. I know people aren't fans of him, but like he gets it. Like Chris Paul will have 7 points, but they'll win because he has like 20 assists, right? So I just think that positionless is good, but everyone needs a role. I think we can't
Yes.
have role less. And I think what happened is that we took the 6'9" vision and forgot about roles. It's like,
Well, yeah. So
rebounders, a block. Like we need role. Every team has to have specific roles for basketball to work, right?
exactly.
Basketball isn't a new sport. It's been around for now almost 100 years now, over 100 years, the sport. So we got to figure out, guys, like, how do we optimize this? What is the best way? I just think Toronto Raptors forgot about role versus positions. Positions is a
Yeah.
different thing, but everyone needs a role.
Exactly. So the way my basketball philosophy is, I don't really care about positions at all, but I do believe, and I'll send it in the description down below. Basketball Index actually has a really good kind of like this is the new way of viewing basketball. So you have things like an offensive initiator, for example, right? And there's certain, to your point, we have a redundancy problem, right? It's not the philosophy of positionless basketball, because it seems to me that a lot of these teams are going towards positionless basketball in one way, shape, or form. It's just
Mm-hmm.
when you have leave that out of this for now, but between, as Beyond calls them, the Wonder Twins, right? And then you add Bo Cruz, right? And then you add, it's like at some point, can someone help a brother out with some different skill sets? That's all,
Yes.
right? And I
Agreed.
think, number one, you can never have enough playmaking, and ideally, you have at least some shooting. So I think it's like, even if you just do that, and I know the potential for Fred leaving mean people are freaking out. I think that there's ways to get shooting that we may not be thinking about, but we can get to that on a draft episode. So, Miss Nelley J, I have taken up a lot of your time. Really quickly, Raptors Live TV. You guys do post game and now pre-game for stuff. Are you
Yeah.
are you planning
So we have
on
a
doing the switch soon?
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna do the switch this summer. I think what was happening is that we didn't want to just change it. Like it literally was like only 2 games left, 3 games left. And as you know, we're doing their internship with the students to give them, so we didn't want to rush it because they're also coming on board for the first time and they're learning it and we got to train them. So I think the goal is to have our pre-games on Twitter. So we're not going to leave Twitter spaces. Like we're not going to stop going on Twitter spaces. We might even open up rooms after some of our post-game shows on Twitch and stuff like that. So we're not leaving Twitter, but we did want to create a platform where folks from other platforms can join us, right? Because I think we were a very fun group of individuals. You guys are so smart. Like I learned a lot from you guys and vice versa. Like it's like a great group think, right? We're all thinking, we're all giving our thoughts and opinions, and I just think it's a great way for us to kind of like, have good friction. I call it good friction, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, we're gonna have pre games on Twitter. As people know, I do Clubhouse watch parties, so that one is more we talk throughout the game, like we'll bring up points about coaching. We actually at halftime we do an update and then everyone gives their coaches like adjustment. So I'll say, hey, first half is done. What's your adjustment for the second half? Like, what do you think? And like that's how you learn to become more of that, not just basketball, but like strategizing. Like, what lineups would you use now? What did you see worked in the first half that you would use the second half? So we do a lot more of that discussion on Clubhouse, and then after that, we do the post game, right? So, but next year I might be doing a watch party on Twitter. I haven't decided yet, but I'll definitely keep everyone updated on that. But Raptors Live TV is definitely it's for the fans, and we're just trying to create a space for us to all speak, communicate, and collaborate. Like I met you through that space. That's why I think it's a good space for us to have healthy dialogue, right? Healthy dialogue. So
Absolutely. And then I forgot to ask this, so I'm going to ask it now. How did you meet your co-host?
oh, great question. Okay. So Fahim and I used to work together in a call center like years ago. So what's funny is that like call centers, you see as a black person, yo, what up? Like you see people in the call center, and then we would talk about like March Madness, we would talk about college hoops, the draft, Raptor, just in passing. And then Fahim and I were on the same team. So we've been in the same room. So, like between calls, right? You're talking to people around you. So we talk about basketball and we'll get into debates and, people would join us and it'll be like a big conversation. So Fahim approached me saying, hey, would you want to do a podcast with me? And I was like, me? Are you sure? Like, I'm a fan. Like, are you? He's like, Janelle, trust me. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll do a podcast. So we started doing the podcasting, going to studios, trying to figure out our flow. And years later now, it's like we built this, it's just natural, right? So I met Fahim at a call center, just working, trying to pay the bills, you know what I'm saying? And now, like years later, we work on the podcast and we have we do the Raptors Live TV, we do the Clubhouse, we do Good Rookie. So, and we're doing other stuff outside of that too. So it's just great to like, have a natural, natural meeting around sports. But yeah, that's how we met.
Absolutely. And I can't remember if we actually talked about it during this, call. I know we talked about it before this,
Mm-hmm.
but you just reminded me something. So if I talked about it, let me know.
No problem.
But the importance of communication with coaches. Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
I can't
No, we
remember.
have not yet. No.
Okay, perfect. Because yeah, I'm like, I know we talked about it right before, but yeah. So call center, communicator, in coaching, right? David Thorpe today made a comment about other coaches, and he made a comment about how a lot of coaches in the NBA don't really do a good job of communicating with guys. He talked about how there's this one player, don't worry, it wasn't a Raptors player, but there's one player that he knows that basically got cut, or his minutes got cut, and 3 days later, the coach happened to run into him in the elevator, and finally they had a conversation about it. At some point, you would
Mm.
think you would have a conversation before that. Now, I know that Nurse sometimes uses the media press conferences to do that. And from what I can't, I'm not going to say the person's name. I want to say Gary, but I might be wrong. So people do not aggregate this. But from what I remember, there was a player this year that said, I found out X through a presser.
At one point, you mentioned your defense.
A couple times.
What is that like for you, for the team? How are those things received when they're not just said behind closed doors, but to us?
Yeah, you just take it on the chin. For me, people use it for different purposes. It may affect them differently. It would just motivate me, to be honest with you. Again.
Does it change when it's said to you, not to us, said to you privately compared to when it's said to us publicly?
That's the thing. Usually, half the time or most of the time, it's not. I don't hear it until you hear it. So I didn't. I wouldn't know that it was an issue or a problem until you put it out there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So in the next coach, if it isn't Nick Nurse, what kind of style of communication do you think is the most important?
I think the thing is that the key about communicating is understanding how the other person receives the communication. That's the biggest thing. People forget that the guys listening to you, you have to understand how they're listening. What are the words? What's going to get them motivated? And to your point, I do agree with them. I don't think communication is really hard. You have to work on it. We also have to I think you have to be a really good listener to be a good communicator. And I think the best coach was going to understand that, and understand when to like pull back and when to go in, understanding the timing as well. So understanding some time is not every day, certain times aren't the best times to bring up items at certain situations. And I think the coach has to make it a priority. This is why, like Phil Jackson, for all the stuff he's done, he was a really good communicator, Popovich, to his players more times than not, because they made sure they took the time to communicate and create an ideology and a belief and a philosophy around their coaching styles. So when you went out there, you had a purpose, you had a vision of what needs to be done. And I don't think our coach does a good job in telling the players, you're really good at these items, and here's what you got to improve. If you want more minutes next season, do these 3 things. You got it. And I'm not saying he didn't do that, but I know assistant coaches do a lot of that stuff as well. So the question is he relying on his other coaches to do that for him? I don't think as a head coach you should be doing that. I think you should be the one saying, okay, you guys tell me items. I will talk to the player with you there, and let's come up with the game plan together. And that's my whole thing, is that you have to listen to that person and then also tell them how you feel as well. It has to be both ways, communication. That's why I think Doc Rivers is a great communicator. Ben Simmons, but a lot of players who play for him love him. Like, no one has ever talked bad about Doc or say he's a bad coach, right? Because he talks to these players, they respect him. So that's
Ben
why I do think, I know fans don't like him, but I do think players like Doc, right? So at the end of the day, I do think that's a big part about coaching. Coaching, it's like you're the pastor of that team. I know it sounds cliche, but like you're like the minister of, spreading the news of what you think they got to do to be successful. So I do think you have to be a really good communicator to be a good coach. And I've interviewed some coaches before, and the ones that are really good, man, they're really good communicators. They listen, they have patience, they have this grace about them that players just gravitate to, and they want to play hard for. So yeah, I think communication and that energy has to be there to be a good coach.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So I think Phil had a good time as a coach, not as a GM. Interestingly enough, he made certain comments as a GM, which didn't. We'll not get into them right now. But what's interesting is he is actually one of Nick Nurse's mentors. So maybe he just came at the wrong time and asked him, Mr. GM Phil Jackson, not the coach Phil Jackson. But with that being said, I've taken up a lot of your time, so I'm going to go to the close of this. Everyone, definitely check out all the links down below. I really appreciate your time. And I guess I'll just ask you like a really quick thing in terms of you. I hate doing these things, but we are here during this time of the year. Who do you see coming out of the East? Or better question. Final four teams.
Oh boy. Okay, so
that's probably easier.
Final four. I know Giannis is not feeling well, but I do think Milwaukee should be able to beat that first round. They need Giannis for the second round, if it's Knicks or if it's so I'm gonna have Milwaukee, Boston on the East, and on the West. Ooh, that's tough. The West, I think I'm going to stick with trying to think who the Lakers. The Clippers are playing Phoenix at the 4-5, right? They're gonna play the 1. So I'm gonna pick Phoenix. And if the Warriors versus the Lakers or Sacramento versus the Lakers, ooh, I might be picking the Warriors or the Lakers. Ooh, it just depends on injuries. I think if the winner of the Sac, oh man, you know what? Yeah, the Warriors or the Lakers, I think. But the Kings might surprise me. Shoot, they're playing out their mind. So,
I mean, we will see.
Yeah, so I think give like five. I think give like 5 teams just now.
Hey,
5 or 6.
Give me the
pending,
teams
of course, injury. I think injuries are happening right now, but pending injuries, yeah, those are my 4 or 5 that I'm gonna rock with.
Absolutely. And then my final thoughts are just, man, this first series, first round of the West is amazing, and we are seeing the Terminator Kawhi back. So I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Like, comment, subscribe. If you have any thoughts, people, about the playoffs, who you think are going to be Final Four or anything like that, keep it real, keep it down below. And Nelley J, thank you so much. And everyone, take care. Peace.
All right, take care.